Hannity tonight, broadcasting live. We are in beautiful Bedford, New Hampshire, where we are tracking several major breaking stories tonight. As we speak, all eyes here on the Granite Live Free Die State, and that is the first primary polls will open in just a few hours. And meanwhile, down the road in Manchester, President Trump wrapped up yet another massive rally. We're going to take you there. Our own Lawrence Jones has been in the crowd all night. And earlier today, yes, yours truly, I made a surprise visit to what was a tiny, itsy-bitsy, sparsely attended Biden campaign event. Kind of depressing sight, to be very blunt. And many in the audience, there were buses, they were bussed in. And a lot of people there, when I talked to them, they weren't even supporting quid pro quo Joe, just kind of there for the entertainment. Here's a preview, and it gets very interesting of what went down. Take a look. Joe Biden's on tape saying, "You're not getting $1 billion unless you fire a prosecutor who's investigating his son, has no experience in oil, gas, energy, or Ukraine, and yet he's getting paid millions and millions of dollars." Is that okay with you?
I have no comment.
I think that's a red herring to take the concentration off of what Trump has done.
Trump was just acquitted for life.
I know, by a Senate that was...
You're not answering my question. Yeah, I'm sure all of your sons and daughters are going to get millions of dollars just to get paid for doing and knowing nothing with no experience. That happens to all of us, right? I guess if we hit the lottery, we'll have the full tape coming up. It's very entertaining. But first, we are only 267 days until the election. You will be the ultimate jury. You have an opportunity to shock the world once again. And this is political crunch time. The Democratic Party, we can report tonight, is in an utter state of complete shambles. It is a mess. The Iowa caucus, a total unmitigated disaster. The field of 2020 Democrats, so weak, so radical, so extreme. Many party insiders are now actually freaking out on the outside. 77-year-old quid pro quo Joe, he's supposed to be the fresh new face of the Democratic Party. You look at the three older, Bloomberg, Biden, and Bernie Sanders, that's like 500 years old combined. He's supposed to be their front runner, but after a pathetic fourth-place finish in Iowa, his campaign is flailing, and the polls here in New Hampshire not looking good either. Over the weekend, a very agitated and frankly, again, incoherent Joe snapping at a 21-year-old woman attending one of his town halls. It's not the first time he's been snapping at people that he's asking to vote for him. She dared to ask a question about the Iowa caucus and electability. He said, you can't make this up, that the young woman had a dog face and called the woman, 21-year-old woman, a liar. Great job, Joe. Take a look.
So how do you explain the performance in Iowa, and why should the voters believe that you can win the national election?
It's a good question. Number one, Iowa's a Democratic caucus. You ever been to a caucus? No, you haven't. You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you. It was a little bit confusing in Iowa.
First he says, I am an Iowa caucus. What? It's just like Joe 30330. Then he says to a 21-year-old woman, you're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. Supposed to be the Democratic Party frontrunner. He's really connecting with the folks, with the people. We the people that he wants to vote for him. That's their top candidate. Now, this is now the third time that quid pro quo Joe was caught on camera being rude, nasty to voters. He said that he was only joking. Didn't look like a joke to me, but the 21-year-old college student at the receiving end of this rage, well, she's not laughing tonight. In fact, she is insulted that they are pretending this was some big, funny joke. She said that quid pro quo Joe humiliated her and, quote, he has been performing extremely poorly in the race, and the fact that he couldn't just answer a straight question without bullying or intimidating just exacerbates that fact. She's right. And earlier tonight, our own Griff Jenkins was able to interview this 21-year-old student. Let's take a look.
Frankly, when he speaks, a lot of what he's saying seems to be really pathos-based and very sad. We have heard a lot about deaths and cancer and people losing their jobs. And to me, he doesn't really seem very solution-oriented in how we fix those problems. I don't think he has the momentum to carry this to a national election.
All right, not exactly a good look for someone who, at this point, probably needs every vote he can get. Now, of course, the campaign has more cause for concern than Biden's deranged rantings that are frankly unhinged. There are now dozens of legitimate questions about zero-experience Hunter and his shady business dealings, not only in Ukraine, but China and other countries. And then quid pro quo Joe's Ukrainian shakedown. Remember, you're not getting the $1 billion. $1 billion unless you fire that prosecutor investigating my zero-experience son. Wow. But quid pro quo Joe doesn't have any answers to that question. Every time he's asked, all we get is indignant rage, and of course the media mob never pushes him. Take a look.
And Lindsey Graham told CBS News, the Justice Department is vetting information from Rudy Giuliani about your son's work in Ukraine. Are you concerned a federal investigation may be launched?
Rudy Giuliani.
Are you concerned a federal investigation may be
Giuliani.
launched? Are you concerned a federal investigation?
Do you think your son is fair game here?
His son or my son?
Your son, Hunter.
I don't think our sons are fair game at all. No one has said he's done anything wrong except the thug Rudy Giuliani. Come on, Rudy Giuliani, a character witness.
I mean, the same Rudy Giuliani who nearly died on 9/11 became America's mayor and was there to lead a country. That Giuliani, the guy that went up against the mob and became one of the toughest prosecutors in history, the guy that turned New York City, which was a dump, into going from, 3,000 murders a year or thereabout to 300? That same Rudy Giuliani, yeah. Okay, he's controversial. But it doesn't answer the question, Joe. How does your zero-experience son, no experience in Ukraine, energy, oil, or gas, get millions of dollars? And how is it you used leverage, I'd even argue shook down the country of Ukraine and said you're not getting $1 billion unless you fire him. You've got 6 hours. Son of a bee, they fired him. Really? Would you act that way if it was Donald Trump and Donald Trump Jr.? Anyway, Joe 30330 is in a free fall and is getting pretty nasty and negative and even turning on his Democratic opponents, including this brand new ad against poor Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Didn't exactly have the best track record in Indiana. Take a look.
And both Biden and Buttigieg have made hard decisions. Despite pressure from the NRA, Joe Biden passed the assault weapons ban through Congress. Then, he passed the Violence Against Women Act. And even when public pressure mounted against him, former Mayor Pete fired the first African-American police chief of South Bend. And then he forced out the African-American fire chief, too. We're electing a president. What you've done matters.
After days of vote counting, Mayor Pete apparently was the big winner out of Iowa, if anyone believes those numbers. And as the Biden ad points out, he struggles with minorities. Didn't look too good over the weekend in that debate. Now, he fired South Bend's very first African-American police chief. He forced out the African-American fire chief as well. And during the last pathetically boring, unwatchable Democratic debate, and I only watched it so you didn't have to in this wonderful audience of ours, he couldn't even answer a question about why he oversaw a massive spike in minority drug arrests during his time as mayor of South Bend. And Mayor Pete might be seeing a surge in the polls, but he's not exactly popular with even his own constituents. He's now battling for first place here in New Hampshire in the primary with congenital liar Elizabeth Warren and, crazy Bernie Sanders, pretty angry socialist.